Current standards for toy collecting often leads to fans wanting figures to look accurate to the cartoons that they grew up with. For the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise, many adult collectors associate the original 1987 cartoon with cementing the legacy of our favorite heroes in a half-shell and the villains who fought opposite to them in most episodes. In recent years, the company Neca has worked to produce figures in the range of about 6.5 inches in height with screen-accurate character likeness that captures the vintage cartoon nostalgic feel. This video looks at the assortment of villains in my personal collection. Let's begin. Hi everyone, this is Ken with Toy Connections. If you enjoy this video and would like to be notified of my future content, please be sure to hit subscribe. Also, if you're able to help this channel grow, head over to my Patreon site and consider a monthly pledge where you'll be able to unlock exclusive content and other benefits. That's patreon.com/toyconnections. The link is in the description below, as is the list of names for this channel's existing Patreon supporters. I will start by saying that I'm aware of the quality criticisms about Neca product, and while I've yet to have a figure break on me, touch wood, I do have some joints that are stiff and that I'm a bit scared to manipulate, though I suppose I could try heating up some of the joints before moving them around if I feel like putting the figures in more dynamic poses. Either way, my focus here will be the characters that I chose for my personal collection, the fact that I bought them primarily for retro enjoyment, and the fact that they are photogenic on my shelves. All that considered, I cannot recommend these figures to withstand the rigors of the wear and tear that can come with constant ongoing playability, so please bear that in mind. Any Ninja Turtles villain collection often builds around the Shredder as the focal point. Known as Orokusaki under his mask and the former ally, now nemesis of the Ninja Turtles mentor Splinter, Shredder commands the army of the Foot Clan as they help carry out his criminal activities. Shredder in the cartoons was far more PG than the dangerous villain he was portrayed as in both the original comic by Mirage as well as the film series produced during the 1990s. I suppose this was done to keep the product friendly for children's viewing, as the cartoon Shredder often alternated between being comical but menacingly evil as well. Voiced primarily by James Avery and later by William E. Martin, many consider Shredder among the iconic villains of their childhood. This particular figure is a great update compared to the shirtless version from the 1988 vintage figure, and it comes with spare hands and other accessories to give collectors more choices on the shelf. I got this as part of the San Diego Comic-Con 2017 pack that came with some other figures. On that note, the foot soldiers that came with this set are equally as cartoon accurate as their leader. The various weapons that they come with give us options to arm them when they are inevitably posed against the Ninja Turtles for photography on your shelves. I do like the fact that the modern scale goes well with other toy lines, and here's a shot of them facing off with the Horde Troopers among the evil forces of Hordak. The foot soldiers were portrayed as android robots in the cartoon, which of course made it easier to watch them get blown up or destroyed rather than, well, killing human ninjas, which they were in other forms of media. If there's one army builder most associated with the TMNT franchise, be it the Neca cartoon, accurate turtles, or otherwise, it is indeed the foot soldier. As for the muscle of the group, what crew of Shredders is complete without Bebop and Rocksteady? Originally starting out as street gangsters, these two thugs agreed to be mutated partway into a warthog and rhinoceros, thus giving them the added strength needed to combat the turtles who had originally beaten them up in a previous encounter. What they lacked in brains, they certainly made up for in size and brutality, though they were often confused and goofy to give the cartoon a bit more of a comical nature to it. They were still often outwitted and outsmarted by the turtles, even if they were often the most formidable opponents that our heroes had on the battlefield. I feel Neca did an amazing job to capture the look and feel of these two, and they really feel like they leapt right out of our TV screen. And if I'm being honest, they are my favorites among the Neca villain figures that I own. They do also come with spare hands and other weapons for added display options. Krang rounds out the core villains set among those who were seen in the bulk of the episodes that I personally watched, and while I do consider him more iconic in his large android body than that of this particular version, this walker body was the one that came with the SDCC set that I mentioned before. Unfortunately, the arms pop out quite easily, in fact a bit more easy than I'd like, but I usually just pop them back in and carry on with my day. A talking brain from Dimension X, Krang was always the one at the forefront of Shredder's schemes, providing him with the technology needed to combat the Turtles and their allies. I personally found Krang a little annoying in the cartoon, but not to the point that I wouldn't want to own the figure. He's still an iconic bad guy in my books. And among those transported through Dimension X, Krang had his own troopers known as the Rock Soldiers. General Traag here was their leader and the most loyal companion and servant to his Lord Krang. Since childhood, I've always been a fan of Traag, and I think he's just a really cool character overall. This Neca figure was originally included as part of a 2-pack that also came with the rock trooper known as Granitor, but somehow, oddly enough, in my travels, I only got Traag alone. Granitor will be nice to have one day, but as I mentioned, Traag would have been the one that I would have wanted primarily anyway. Now, as part of a 2-pack, I was after the Vernon character, as he's a core member of the Channel 6 news crew, but conveniently he came packed with the Rat King, who is a somewhat mysterious character in the original animated series. He was viewed as an intelligent villain of sorts, who controlled a rat kingdom and lived homeless in the New York City sewers. While he was considered a villain to the Turtles, he would help them on occasion, but was mostly a loner on his own, aside from his rats. He was largely seen as an independent bad guy outside of the scope of those associated with Shredder and Krang, and I was never a huge fan of the character, but the concept of having a wider range of villains with various agendas who weren't always seen as part of the core villain crew gave the Ninja Turtles cartoon a more fluid and interesting dynamic than that of other cartoons within this same era. You will find that there are some notable omissions in my collection. Among them is Baxter Stockman, who, if I can ever track down a human scientist version, I'll probably pick it up. I prefer it over the half-mutated bug version, partly because I'm just used to the idea of a mad scientist of sorts being on the core group of bad guys, or partly because I was used to fighting against him in his flying gadget in the vintage video game that was both available to play via arcade as well as the original Nintendo Entertainment System. You'll also notice that I didn't get other villains, such as Leatherhead. Overall, the Ninja Turtles franchise remains among the core staples of my childhood, and as a brand I consider it a cornerstone of that era's greatest cartoons and toy lines. What I like about the Turtles franchise is that when compared to the big three toy lines of the 80s, namely Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Masters of the Universe, when those were ramping down during the late 1980s, Ninja Turtles went right to the front of children's minds, becoming the new hot ticket item that dominated the aisles of your favorite toy stores the same way that the big three did before it. No, these Neca figures are by no means perfect, as I've mentioned before regarding their durability. However, a collector is hard-pressed to find figures that pay homage to the original cartoon as well as these figures do. For that reason, they have a place on my toy shelves. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed your time here as I share this portion of my collection with you. As per usual, like this video to spread it to more viewers, subscribe if you already haven't, and I will see you again soon with some more of my favorite toys. Thanks again, and take care.